So lastly, with the Stanford Prison Experiment, like I said, I met Dr. Zimbardo when he came to Hawaii. So he's famous for that, but he's done a lot of other wonderful work studying what makes a hero, which is great. But at the time, imagine being a Stanford student, part of a study, you volunteer. Everybody volunteer got tested to make sure they were healthy mentally, physically. And so they weeded out anybody that could pose any harm, shows they did psychological intensive, extensive psychological and physical tests to make sure that everybody that was part of the study had no history of violence or any type of psychosis or mental illness, and they were physically healthy. They were all males. It's another issue that they haven't been able to replicate with women, but because the study was unethical, what happened was that they actually had the students pretend, like role play. We talked about social roles. Half of them got placed as prisoners, half of them got placed as the officers. And the officers that kept guard, the guards, they got the uniforms, and the inmates also had uniforms, but they were there 24/7, where the guards were able to leave. So got tested, everybody healthy, randomly placed in either guards or prisoners. And then they were told no violence, just this is going to go on for the summer and let's see what happens. So everybody agreed and they started the project. And so as they started off, unfortunately, in a few days, it became violent and abusive. The inmates started to believe their role, and they were Stanford students. So these are smart, educated students. It's not easy to get into Stanford. There for the summer and make some money. They didn't get to choose if they could be guards or prisoners. They got randomly placed. But unfortunately, the moment the guards had the power and the batons and the uniform, they went into the role play. But once there was violence that was not stopped, that's where the situation, it created a bad barrel. Not bad apples, because we tested them beforehand. It was a situation that was conducive to it. So it brought out the worst in some of them, and they became abusive towards the inmates, and the inmates began to become depressed and believe they were inmates. And you can say, how can you believe that reality so quickly? You're Stanford students. You know this is an experiment that you're part of. They said that they just saw themselves as a number when they got treated as a number, when they were wearing it and when they were in that environment. It's like they knew that they were students, but all of a sudden, your mind is so powerful. So it believes the reality that you tell it and that you're in, and that others see you that way. And so that became their new reality. They could leave, but again, they were immersed in that. And so it was actually Zimbardo's girlfriend that came to visit one weekend, and she saw how abusive they were, wearing like bags over their heads. Like Zimbardo started believing the role that he was a warden and was not a psychology professor at Stanford. And so after they had turned basement of the psychology department for the summer as a prison for this to happen, so it would be very realistic, they had to stop it. She actually said, if you don't stop it, I don't think I can be with you, because this is unethical. You're hurting. You're not allowed to emotionally, psychologically, physically hurt students or in any experiment. It can be damaging. And she said, this is damaging to them. And so they stopped it. Only 6 days. In 6 days, that became their reality, and the power. And when they asked the guards, why did you do this? Why did you behave this way? They said that it was when they took on that role, there was no consequences for the violence. They just took the power and ran with it. They were shocked, even themselves, to see them. They never thought they would behave that way towards other students. If they didn't do what they wanted, they would take out their mattresses out of their cell. They would force them to eat everything. They've made other movies about it, The Experiment. I'm putting a link for you to watch. Optional if you're wanting to continue, if you're interested in this topic of obedience. Well, Milgram is more obedience. This is more as you conform also to the role that you're given. So what can happen if you conform to the role that you're given and it becomes part of your identity because of your job, because of what you're expected to do. So yeah, it's hard to watch. So there's violence in it. Don't watch it if you're not comfortable with that, but it's realistic. It's what actually happened in the study. There's lots of documentaries. They followed them over time. If you're interested in that topic, you can also kind of go down that rabbit hole. So just to wrap up, you have, those videos are over an hour each. They're movies, and they're based on real life. So they're documentaries, but I think they're really interesting because they make them into movies with great actors. So makes it more interesting. And so again, you watch the Milgram's life and you watch the lectures, and then you comment and an email with a paragraph total for those part of your attendance. So if you can turn that in. And then the rest of your homework is due. So make sure that you look at the module. And like I mentioned, for this week, you have your reading to do. Just to go over it again, let me know if you have any questions. But you're reading about psychology, social thinking, social influence, your discussion. So due November 30th, and it's talking about what we've been talking about, the Milgram study. So that should help you with that. And then you have your MindTap activities. Make sure you keep up to date with MindTap, your knowledge check quiz, your reflective journal exercise, and then continue working on your outline. So just to go over the reflective journal exercise is going over how do people around us influence behavior, emotional, and how does our behavior change in different settings. So what this video has been talking about, and being able to relate it to the 31-year-old man that drowned while a group of teens stood by and videotaped his struggle on July 9th, 2017. So again, go back to the video that I did on bystander effect and diffusion of responsibility. That will be helpful. With this, the teens posted the video to social media where you could hear them laughing. The man, Jamal Dunn, died without help from these or any bystanders. So again, think for yourself, and why would they behave this way? Is it their personality? Did they enjoy seeing him suffer? Was it because of the situation? So dispositional versus situational factors. Were they actually unable to swim out? They thought somebody else should help. What if there was just one of them there? Would they have helped? Did the fact that they were with friends change how they were individually? So conformity. And when you are with a group of your friends, does that change your thought process? So always applying it to yourself. The best way to learn psychology is to apply it to yourself. And you have the rubric there to make sure that you are fulfilling to be able to get the 30 points. And then your instructions for the outline, going over for the mental disorder that you are doing a presentation on. So remember that covers symptoms, treatments, effect on day-to-day function, etiology, typical age of onset, prognosis, healthcare issues, challenges to providing healthcare to individuals with this illness or disorder, what healthcare providers should keep in mind working with patients with this mental illness or disorder, and celebrity photo or movie that reflects someone with the illness or disorder. So again, this is it's the big point. It's 160 points. It's your presentation for the class. It's not due till the end of the term, but these things help you to picking the topic and getting the outline to move forward. So remember, it's not an outline. You don't turn in already your PowerPoint, so you don't have to do that, but that's due this week. And so make sure that's turned in, just the outline to help you move forward to getting it done. Okay, if you have any questions, let me know, and make sure to submit your opinion about Milgram and what you would do.